I don't know if you guys realize this, but 1 week ago today, we were celebrating a Super Bowl championship. But you know what? The celebration is over. It's time to move on. It's time to have a State of the Union, State of the Philadelphia Sports Union address today. What can the other teams in Philadelphia learn about what the Eagles did? We're also going to discuss that disease that is ring culture, supposedly, that Philadelphia fans are pushing. Trending in the AM, we're live with a special guest. We're live in 30 seconds.
Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 woo!
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on the STT Sports Network. Guys, we're live. YouTube and Twitter, you know the drill. Wherever you are watching, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. It is free to do. It is free to support a local content creator. All it takes is a quick like, a quick subscribe, and a quick share. I greatly appreciate it, guys. As the march to 500 subscribers is on, we're sitting at 426 today to start the day. Let's see what we end up at the end of the day, guys. But all it takes is those simple clicks. I'm your host, Phil Stiefel, and joining me today, the pride of Italian, Philadelphians, Marc Moscatelli, that big, beautiful, bald Italian man sitting next to me here. Checked in Friday from the parade, and now he's back here to talk Eagles and Philadelphia sports with me. Good morning, Marc. I hope you're well.
I'm well, Phil. Thank you for the invite, and thank you for sitting in the co-host chair or guest chair or whatever chair you want to call it. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm glad to have you. And we got lots to talk about today. Yes, good morning to everyone. I got a fever, and I know it came. Dude, I hit a big hit last night. Ludwig Oberg winning the Genesis Invitational. 25-1 hit last night. That's right, K1. You gotta watch Fairway to Heaven for all my golf betting picks right there. It's kind of crazy. Real quick, before we even get into today's topics, I'm sitting there last night and I was watching the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary, which was, some of it was good, some of it was pretty bad. It is what it is. I'm sitting there thinking, watching that last night, I'm like, man, this point last week, we were blowing out the Kansas City Chiefs on the way to our second Super Bowl championship. And it kind of just was one of those, like, wow moments. Like, when I really finally think it's set in that we did actually win the Super Bowl. What's like the last week of emotions been like for you, Marc? That it's really setting in that we've actually done this.
So all week was I can't wait for the parade. I can't wait, and it helped me get through the week. And Friday was the parade, and there was a lot of fun, a lot of joy, a lot of camaraderie at the parade. Saturday and Sunday, I was like spent because like the energy that I used for that game last Sunday and the energy for me to plow through the week just to get to where I wanted to be. Like all me and my friends and my family were talking about was parade. And then come Sunday, it's funny that you mentioned that. I did watch the SNL special as well. And it coincided with the Super Bowl time as well. If you go from the red carpet all the way on, I couldn't keep my eyes open. And it wasn't because it was boring. I was spent. And then I was thinking, there was no sleep to be had on February 9th. Not at all. But like I was spent this weekend. I was exhausted. I had to recover.
It's an exhausting weekend. Big Al saying I'm still high on the win, but now I need baseball. I felt lost yesterday. It's always a big deal. Like, it's funny. I'm going to tell my story. Like, everyone's like, well, how do you fill your Sundays now with no baseball? Well, during football season, we don't have a great, big staff at the pizza shop. My wife works so I could be home on Sundays to watch the Eagles game. Well, yesterday there was no Eagles game. Guess who had to work at the shop so the wife could stay home? So my Sundays are now filled with pizza shop time. But yes, we do need baseball. And I think we've got two different topics today, but they kind of go hand in hand. And the topics are, what's the state of Philadelphia sports now that the season's over, and what the Eagles can teach the Sixers, the Phillies, whose season's about to come on their way, the Flyers. But also the other topic is, this conversation of ring culture, that Eagles fans are pushing, that rings are all that matters, and that's a disease in sports. That's a national commenter right there. I think it was from CBS Sports or Fox Sports, I forget. Someone said that it's a disease, that all we care about is rings. But we'll get into that in a minute. But that is what these other sports teams, Phillies, most importantly, because their season's about to start soon, they can look at the Eagles and how they've consistently built championship caliber teams that have won 2 titles in the last 8 years, on how the Eagles have built these championship teams, the fundamentals. And that's what the Phillies need to look at and lean at and start thinking about if they're serious about winning a trophy.
So if somebody said on Twitter, somebody should lock Bryce Harper in a room and show him that Super Bowl and then the parade afterwards, and don't let him out until he absorbs it. Mm-hmm. This ring culture thing, that this is, well, now that the Eagles have 2 rings and the Phillies are perennial in the mix for a World Series. I think people hate us. I think people don't like us to have nice things. I think it should be every sports organization's culture to win a championship. Mm-hmm. I don't get that. Now, ring chasing by a player is a problem.
Well, yeah, that's a different topic. But there's nobody on this Eagles team. There's no one on the Eagles team chasing a ring.
No, they earned every bit of that ring that they. I mean, Barkley changed teams. Well, Barkley wasn't going to be re-signed by the Giants. He had to change a team. He didn't have a choice. Right. So and Hassan Reddick. I mean, you want to talk about him? Like, what was his major motivation? It was money, and unfortunately, he's not on the team to celebrate with his teammates that were last year. So I don't think there's chasing ring culture. Like that's what you're supposed to do as a sports organization. You're not supposed to be the Pittsburgh Pirates. You're not supposed to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to be, the Washington Wizards. You're not supposed to be those types of teams. And how those cities put up with that shit, I don't know, because bigger picture stuff, costs more and more to go to these games. These teams ask for subsidies and tax breaks and public funding for their stadiums. You got to give the fans something back in return. Absolutely. And that's rings. And
I want to address. So if anybody doesn't understand, what is ring culture mean that people are obsessed with it? So basically there have been some media people this weekend that are still trying to bring down Jalen Hurts, bring down Nick Sirianni, and saying, and this is national media people, that just because Jalen Hurts won a Super Bowl, just because Jalen Hurts won the Super Bowl MVP, he's still not, and I quote this, he's still not better than Dak Prescott. He's still not better than Justin Herbert. He's still not better than Trevor Lawrence, that he's still not a top 15 quarterback just because he won a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP. And they said, they went into, I never even heard the word ring culture before this, basically saying that ring culture is a disease that's ruining sports and ruins the evaluation of players, because rings aren't what matters. How good of a football player is all that matters. So that is for those that don't understand what we're talking about ring culture. It's this national narrative to, again, we knew, Mark, that the disrespect would continue even after a Super Bowl victory. But I didn't expect it to be in this format, where we're wrong for thinking that our players are good because they won a Super Bowl. It's kind of a loser mentality. And Mark, I want to know this. I really think it's a lot of jealousy as well. I think it's, you look at Cowboys fans blaming this and that. But Cowboys fans know that their team is in turmoil. They know that they're nowhere near as good as they think they are. So it's jealousy. Chargers fans with Justin Herbert, they can't admit that Justin Herbert doesn't have that clutch factor, that leadership ability. Jacksonville fans can't believe that Trevor Lawrence has regressed so much. You know, I really think it's jealousy.
It's jealousy in the fact that you had these pontificators and clickbait artists all season saying, well, Nick Sirianni should be fired. He's not a good head coach. And Jalen Hurts is not a good quarterback, and he's just a manager. Vic Fangio's defense, like his players won't buy into him. So they have these takes that they had all year that they're not going to come off and say, I was wrong. They're going to now change the narrative and move the goalposts to, well, this is ring culture, and you don't like ring culture. Let these guys play, and they have to be good athletes, and they have to, stack up some numbers and whatnot. And listen, I'm probably a little bit guilty of that too, because you ask, I think, for a list of the top 5 quarterbacks or something like that on Twitter, and you had Hurts at 1. I think it was you.
Not recently. I never did that.
Yeah,
I've had Patrick Mahomes at number 1 for a while.
It was somebody had Hurts as the number 1 quarterback in the history of the Eagles.
The history of the Eagles. Yes. I did have him number 1 in Eagles history because, again, it's the wins.
And I had him at 4 because McNabb has put up a resume. You don't have the championships. He went to a Super Bowl.
Is 4.5 years that much different than his 10 years, though?
Listen, dude, come next year, Hurts will be number 1. Let him get a 4,000-yard season, 20 more touchdowns, another 15 rushing. He is not far off by the all-time team lead in rushing touchdowns, which is whether he's a running back or not is absolutely amazing. This
is a huge comment from Mista here in multiple different levels. Jalen Hurts took a team-friendly contract to win a championship. Why is Harper asking for a new contract? Does he want a championship? First and foremost, on just the Jalen Hurts thing, and I try to tell this to a lot of people because everyone was complaining about Joe Burrow talking about, well, the Eagles just sign everybody. Well, they're able to sign everybody because Jalen Hurts did take a team-friendly contract. Joe Burrow can't pay everybody because he did not take a team-friendly contract. So there's that aspect of it. Then there's the other aspect of Bryce Harper wanting an extension on his contract. Now, I get why. I also don't know why. At the same, I'm torn on the Bryce Harper side because, yes, he took a team-friendly contract. He's extremely underpaid, but he also is the one that chose that contract. He's the one that chose not to put the 5 or 7 year opt-out in his contract. There's some interesting things, but I love the comment from you, Mista.
First of all, excuse my French, get the fuck out of here. He's overpaid. He's not. He's underpaid. He's making $30 million a year. I don't want to hear that.
$26 million a year. He's
whatever. It doesn't matter.
28th highest paid player in baseball.
Tough. And he was the highest paid player when he signed his contract. The second thing is, and you're starting to see this because the foundation is starting to crack. That's Scott Boras. That's not Harper. I don't think Harper. I listen, I'm sure he would like a contract extension, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he is the guy that is voicing that concern from the mountaintop. I think that's Scott Boras. And Scott Boras is really becoming persona non grata in baseball. He has, the last few free agent cycles, he has not come to bat for his players. And Nick Castellanos just dropped him as an agent. And he had a pretty good interview with Tim Kelly on Patterson over the weekend. I don't know if you caught it or not, or some of the excerpts.
I caught the highlights of it, yes.
Yeah, so he basically said, I really don't need an agent, and I can handle this shit myself. And honestly, Boras is out for Boras. He's not out for his players. I think some players are seeing that, and these guys are not landing the contracts that they think they were going to get by length or by whatever the amounts are. So I do believe that if we're going to segue into Phillies, you need to take a look at what's going on with that team and that roster right now. It's the same team. It's the same team. They added the pitcher from the Marlins, and I can't think of his name.
Lozado
and Max
Lozado, whatever.
So I mean, they added him. They lost Hoffman and Carlos Estevez, but I don't think Carlos was coming back. And Hoffman, I think, he wants to get paid.
See, here's the biggest thing. If you want to talk Phillies, and the whole point is to talk about what the Eagles can teach or what the other teams can learn from the Eagles. I'm sure you've seen all the videos of all the Eagles speaking the night before the Super Bowl, right? Addressing the team, Jalen Hurts talking to the team beforehand. Is there a single player on the Phillies? You could throw the Sixers into this, or the Sixers, that is the type of leader or leaders that the Eagles are filled with. The Jalen Hurts, the Lane Johnsons of the world, the Brandon Grahams of the world, Darius Slays of the world. They don't have those guys in those leadership. Bryce Harper's a leader to an extent in a certain way. Kyle Schwarber's kind of clubhouse leader, but they're not real true leaders that are going to solve problems when the problems hit, when the going gets tough. They're not the guys that are going to motivate the guys to stay focused when the going gets too good. There's a huge difference. It's not just winning championships, in my opinion, is not just talent. There's got to be a certain mentality in a locker room in sports. The Phillies don't necessarily have the same kind of mentality that the Eagles do because they're too busy playing dancing on your own and partying and being best friends with their coach. Rob Thompson never yells at the players like Nick Sirianni would, while also hugging them and being that fatherly figure. I think there's a huge difference in culture, locker room culture, between the Eagles and the Phillies and the Sixers, and that's why those teams are so far from winning a title.
I think that Phillies culture is close but fragmented. You asked for who are the leaders on the team. I think with the presence of Bryce Harper over the course of the last few years, people were afraid to come out as the leader, thinking that well, this is Bryce's team and I don't want to overstep. I think if they had a heart-to-heart with Bryce, he would be okay with somebody else taking the spotlight, and I think that's Kyle Schwarber. I think that Nick Castellanos. I think, and JT Realmuto, I know he's beloved by that manager, and I have some thoughts on him. I think this is his last go-around, and this is what I was trying to get at. This is the team's last go-around. As you notice, nobody got an extension. JT did not get an extension.
Kyle did not.
Kyle Schwarber, who I thought would get an extension, did not get one. Castellanos is in his next to last year contract, and while he's close with Dombrowski, I don't know what his future holds. Harper's the only constant, along with the two pitchers. This is the last go around, and this is it for this team. If
remember, also here's the other one. Remember this, because you got a big thing with the Eagles coming up. That Nick Sirianni's going into the last year of his deal. You always renegotiate before the last year's a contract of a coach, right? This is in all sports. You're never a lame duck coach in sports. I expect Nick Sirianni to get a 3 to 5 year extension this offseason. What kind of extension did Rob Thompson get?
Did he get 2 years?
1 year tacked on. So he was entering the last year of his deal. They added 1 extra year onto it, and that was it. That when you're talking about, and K1 saying, can we not segue to the Phillies? We're not really necessarily talking just straight Phillies. We're talking about the difference between the Eagles and everybody else in this city and why the other teams need to be really sitting down. You say lock in a room for Bryce Harper. They all need to be locked in a room and just examine not just this year, but the last 3 or 4 years. Oh, the last 8 years of this Eagles franchise.
Listen, if we're talking about the Phillies again, listen, 2022 was a surprise, and that was one of the most fun years Absolutely. I've ever had watching baseball, and they fell 2 wins short. So 2023, you're going in, you're expecting them honestly to win the World Series, and they were on track to do that, and they got too full of themselves. Let's be real, against the Diamondbacks, and they punched them right in the mouth. Then 2024. They had their eyes on this division, and they locked the division down, and they played awful against the Mets. And it seems like they keep taking steps backwards, a step forward, 2 steps backwards. So I understand having short patience with the current nucleus of this team and the manager. And honestly, if they don't get things done this year, this team is going to look significantly different in 2026.
But see, there's another thing the Phillies can learn from the Eagles. Look at the Eagles over the last 8 years. Okay. Moving on from the first Super Bowl coach. No problem paying and then getting rid of and accepting, because it's different in football and baseball. Salary cap, no salary cap. Took a $60 million dead cap hit to get rid of Carson Wentz. Still made the playoffs. Letting Hassan Reddick walk, letting guys go, making the drastic changes needed. The Phillies are entering this season with Max Kepler and Lozada. That's the only 2 real additions to this team. They didn't let anybody go. They didn't make any of those hard decisions. They could have moved on from Bohm or Castellanos or JT at some point this offseason. They could have moved on from their coach or done something to make a change. But they're just, for their 23, 24, third straight year, just running it back with no significant changes. They're not willing to take that risk of making a change because they don't want to ruin that locker room culture. But that locker room culture hasn't gotten them anywhere.
I don't think.
And I saw all the Jake Tapper stuff, Mike. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. Jake Tapper.
I didn't get a chance to see that.
He basically just called out everybody. He was basically the Jason Kelsey. This person said this. This person said that. Called them all out on CNN during the parade. So,
getting back to Jake Tapper, fun fact: his dad was my pediatrician growing up, and he often had. Jake Tapper, now this is a true story. Jake Tapper would draw pictures, and his dad would frame them in all the different waiting rooms for the kids. Like they would be dragons and like army men and stuff like that. And it would say Jake age 10, Jake age 12. But that's getting off on a tangent. But you want to talk about Team USA?
I heard there was a big hockey game, and I didn't know about it. So people were blasting me about it.
I had no idea that the NHL scrapped their All-Star weekend for the Four Nations tournament, and it's been wildly popular. And
who knew? I had no clue.
I had no friggin' idea. And meanwhile, the NBA weekend, I did not watch 1 second of anything that they had to offer, and I heard it was absolutely terrible.
Everybody's hyping up Mac McClung winning the dunk contest. Mac McClung's not even an NBA player, and that's who's winning your dunk contest on a 3-year run here now. So
it's terrible. But getting back to where the Phillies are at, Rick, I agree, but I think they're stocking up on pitching. I think their pitching is going to be, I should say, their starting pitching is going to be phenomenal this year.
Make sure you put that caveat: starting pitching.
Yeah, I don't know about the bullpen again, but we'll see. And I think their lineup can hit. What do they tinker with the lineup? Where I saw somewhere that they're projecting Schwarber to clean up this year, not lead off. I don't know how true that is, and I don't know if he'll allow you to do that. But if that makes Trey Turner a better player by leading off, I think you have to do that. This team is this team, and this is it. If they don't get it done this year, it's going to be looking different. And then, Phil, you said something. Well, why don't the Phillies do what the Eagles do? They get off of these different contracts and these different teams. They can't. Those guys are untradeable. Some of them are 5 and 10. Like JT is untradeable. He's a 5 and 10 guy. Harper has a no trade clause, so you're not going to get rid of him. Who's going to pick up Castellanos? They floated him out the last 2 seasons, and nobody wants him for that money. And Middleton probably doesn't want to pay his salary and have him play somewhere else. You got to make those. You got to make those. Nobody wants.
Rick's been really big push in the last week or two that the Phillies are going to win the World Series, and I just keep saying, but there's nothing different from this team than the last 3 years. There's nothing. It's the exact same team. And you look at the Eagles every single time, the Eagles are willing to make the tough calls, the tough decisions on a weekly, daily, yearly basis. The Phillies aren't willing to make those decisions. The Sixers aren't willing to make those tough decisions.
The Phillies traditionally have never made those tough decisions. They're very,
and that's what's wrong with them. And that's what's the difference in the disconnect.
Fan-centric. They don't want to upset the apple cart if it's something that's working. The Sixers, on the other hand, are an absolutely they're a mess. They are, and I was a Paul George guy. I was like, hey, they got to sign. They have to have a big three. This will be good. And Embiid has been hurt all year, and Paul George does not care. I mean, did you see his Instagram post this weekend? He's on Wood Island somewhere. You know.
Sipping Mai Tais, chilling, living his best life.
He don't give a shit. He don't give a shit.
And you got him for 3 more years now too.
And they should listen. They should have unloaded him at the trade deadline. They should have just, even if it was for a bag of balls, start over. And I'm the kind of guy like now I'm thinking about Embiid. Like, do you come off him now and just make McCain and Maxey your centerpieces? And I don't know. If you do that, having 2 small guards be your centerpiece in the NBA, dude, the NBA is a shit product, dude.
I didn't watch any of the NBA. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, Mark or K1. I watched 0 seconds of the NBA this weekend, but I saw on Twitter this morning. I was going through things, and there's a highlight video of SGA, the young stud from Oklahoma City, warming up for the All-Star game. And when he was warming up last night, he was warming up flop shots. So he was taking jump shots and practicing them as if he was flopping. He was literally practicing flopping shots. Like that's not what you want the young youth of today. It's not what you want the kids today seeing. That's the problem. I see my nephew practicing basketball all the time. And what's he do? He sees YouTube videos and he tries to mimic the shots of the pros. Well, if he sees SGA, which I know he's a huge SGA fan, trying to practice a flop shot, he's going to do it. And then he's going to go to the YMCA league next week and try to do that. And that's just not what you want the kids today learning.
My team that I coach basketball, they bait the referees all the time. And I'm like, guys, what the frig are you guys doing, man?
The stars do.
Play basketball. But, the NBA product sucks. The Sixers they need to tear it back down. I thought they were going to come out and make some noise this year. And as soon as Embiid was hurt and they weren't disclosing what was going on, it just sucked the wind, not only out of the team itself, but the fans. Like you could get tickets for $5 again down there and pretty decent.
It's process level. Yeah. It's process level.
It's just I bought a 3-game plan last year. And this year, I am not lying, Phil. They call me 3 times a week and send me emails every day asking if I'm interested in buying tickets or, signing up for next year's season tickets. And there's just no way. There's no way that I'm going to put money out for that product. I'm just not. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was going to say, K1's talking about how silver, the commish, has managed to turn gold into lead. He was interviewed, obviously, multiple times this weekend with the All-Star festivities. He was asked by somebody, and I saw this, and I'm paraphrasing his answer. He was asked on what he'd like the fans to do moving forward with the NBA, and he said, stop complaining about referees. That was his message to the fans this weekend at All-Star Game weekend. Stop complaining about refereeing. Well, it's kind of hard to do that when the league is so bad. I truly, firmly believe, and we're still talking Eagles and Phillies and Sixers, and Mark, I love your opinion on this. I really, truly feel that the NBA and Major League Baseball are cruising at a high rate of speed towards a massive lockout or strike, both leagues. The next time their player league agreements are up, both those leagues are getting shut down because there's flaws in both leagues that are so bad right now, especially when you look at the success of football, that I don't think they're sustainable the way they're going right now in baseball or basketball.
There's no more strikes in professional sports. It's all lockouts. It's all owner.
But I should use the word work stoppages are incoming at a very high rate of speed the next time these agreements are up.
You got a real serious problem in the NBA where your guys don't play back-to-back nights, and it's a disease. And some of your greats and some of your people that have been like some of your players that have come up the ranks, like. They'll tell you a guy like Barkley or a guy like Jordan, like if Kobe was still here, Kobe wouldn't put up with that shit. Like if you were on a team with with Jordan or Kobe. Like he wouldn't put up with that shit. Now it's fashionable to be, miss the back end of a back-to-back. And it's so bad that Adam Silver had to put in rules that you can't win awards unless you play 65 games, which the way the season is going right now, I don't know who's going to be available for these awards. And you're laughing. It's the truth, man. Like
it is
really
true.
Bad. It's a really bad. Yeah, dude, Uncle Sam's going to take most of that money.
Yeah, take it all. Look, Rick's saying the Phillies are consistently one of the best teams in baseball over the last 3 years. But again, this goes back to the main topic of ring culture. Is it a disease like some national pundits will tell you? The Phillies might be a great regular season baseball team, but they've come up small in the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. I won't take 2022. Getting to the World Series and losing at the end like that to the Astros, it was one thing. But the last 2 years, they've come up extremely small in the playoffs. They really have. There's no doubt about it. So being the best in the regular season, that's like talking about Justin Herbert or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen are 100 times better than Jalen Hurts because they put up regular season stats. It's all about winning championships. I don't think Terry Bradshaw cared about his stats on his way to 75 Super Bowl victories. He just wanted to win Super Bowls because that's all that mattered back in the day. I could bring up other examples. That's all that matters. So that's just my thought on Rick's comment there.
So I want to add to that. So Rick, back in 07 to 11, the Eagles were a pretty shitty team or on the downward slide, and the Phillies were, the leaders in the city. And we were saying this similar things where the Eagles need to take a page out of the Phillies playbook and get moving, and they eventually moved off of Andy Reid. Here's the reverse. The Phillies got to take a page out of the Eagles playbook, and I do think a lot of these franchise feed off of each other, and I would not be surprised if somebody like Middleton and Dombrowski are having conversations with their team that, listen, dude, you guys got to do something because this is it. If you don't do it this year, and I've said this a couple times, that JT's not coming back next year. I don't think he's coming back next year, period. They talked about him playing left field this year. JT Realmuto has zero value playing left field, playing first base, DHing, playing third base. He has no value. His only value, and this is not to shortchange him, this is really telling like how really good he is, because I think he's still one of the best catchers in baseball. His value is behind the plate. Absolutely. His value is behind the plate, calling a baseball game and putting up above average numbers for a catcher at the plate. If you're putting his numbers in left field or at first base or DH, you've created two holes in your lineup and in your fielding. You are. So there's no value of JT playing left field. I don't see that. It's not like he's just a great hitter and his just fielding skills have diminished. Both have diminished. He's still an above average catcher, and I think this pitching staff needs him behind the plate. I don't want to see him in left field. That would be
not at all. It doesn't make. But here's the thing: the Phillies and the Sixers have made so many mistakes because we got Morey is to blame. The Sixers are garbage. The Phillies and the Sixers. The Phillies handed out a lot of 10-year contracts or 7, 10, 12-year contracts, which in baseball is not an ideal way. In basketball, Morey's handed out all these huge mega contracts to Paul George, to Joel Embiid that you can't get out of. The Eagles constantly, and Howie Roseman constantly builds contracts, and football is different because they're not fully guaranteed contracts, but constantly builds contracts so that he can move off of them or renegotiate them. So he's mastered the system that football is. And now baseball and basketball are different, but there's plenty of other teams in baseball and basketball that are consistently winning championships because they know how to manipulate their sports in building championship rosters. And they're willing to make those changes and chances. The Sixers and Phillies aren't. The Eagles are.
You want the Phillies to sign all their players to deferred contracts like the Dodgers?
I mean, it's working for the Dodgers. Spent $7 billion this offseason. But no, I mean, look, I just want them to make smart decisions. And honestly, the fact that they made no decisions this offseason tells me that they don't have an understanding of why this team's fallen short.
I think they're looking at they're trying to manage the present by also looking at the future. And I think they're putting a lot of eggs in Painter, Miller, and Crawford as being the next wave of homegrown talent coming through. So they're not going to want to lock up guys that are currently in those roles today on the team. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you balance that. My thing is, if they're ready to play now, well, Jesus, get rid of Marsh, get rid of Bohm, get rid of them and have them have something come back for the farm system to replenish it if you're going to pull these guys out. Baseball is just so different with service time and luxury tax stuff and deferred contracts and all that. It's a whole different animal. And again, to your point, I do think something's going to happen where there is a lockout. These 10 and 15-year contracts, I mean, honestly, locking a player in for 15 years doesn't help the player or the organization. They should really limit the years.
I said the same thing when in 2019, I said 1999. In 2019, when the Phillies signed Harper to a 13-year deal, I was hyped. But then I kind of calmed down and said, 13 years is a long time. A lot can happen in 13 years, not just to the player, to the team, to the organization, to the sport. There's so much that can happen in 13 years. These 10, 13, 15-year deals are ridiculous. They really, at least in basketball, they're max 5 years, and that's if you retain your players. You can't sign anything more than a 4-year deal in basketball in free agency. At least they got that working for them in basketball. So you can get off of it a little bit quicker than Bryce Harper or Ohtani or any of these other guys.
Fun fact, Harper, by July, will be halfway through his contract.
It's insane. It's insane. Time has flown by in it.
Time is
we got a lot of people talking about the Sixers and stripping it down. It's not easy to strip down what the Sixers are. Nobody's going to line up to take Joel Embiid's contract. The fact that I said this, and I agree, I wasn't originally on board with trading Embiid. I am now. That's fine. I get it. But I said it when they gave him the extension. The fact that they needed 6 outside doctors to give them to find the okay to give him that contract, that tells you all you need to know. When Paul George openly admitted after signing with the Sixers that we weren't his first choice, we weren't his second choice, we were his third or fourth choice, that tells you that Daryl Morey made a big mistake there. And again, these GMs of the Phillies and Sixers are totally different mindsets than Howie Roseman. Complete and total different mindsets. And you know what? Yeah, you might trade Embiid. You might be able to trade Paul George this offseason. But realistically, you might have to trade Tyrese Maxey or Jarrett McCain as well. If you're really going to, I know it. I don't want to. But what's Embiid's value? There really isn't any. If you're going to really strip it down and start over,
you could squeeze a first-round pick out of him.
Squeeze a first-round pick? You're talking about Joel Embiid here. I get that. And that's probably the max you're going to get is a heavily protected first-round pick. No one's giving you 3-4 first-round picks. But to get draft picks to rebuild this team, you're going to have to trade something of value, and Tyrese Maxey is your value.
All right, here's the solution.
I'm not saying I want to trade him. I'm just saying that's your best return asset from the Sixers.
Here's your solution for the Sixers. Josh Harris needs to take Bob Myers, who's the consultant on the Commanders, and move him over to the Sixers and fire Morey. That's your solution.
100%.
Why he hasn't done that, I don't know. But maybe this is it. I think Bob Myers would. I mean, he built the friggin' Golden State Warriors.
Yep.
Why wouldn't he be able to do the same here with the Sixers?
Well, first and foremost, I've been saying it since day one. I said it the day he was hired that Daryl Morey was going to be not the answer for the Philadelphia 76ers. So I'm glad to pat myself on the back and be right about that. But everyone keeps saying, every time I try to criticize Daryl Morey, everyone's like, well, he was able to trade James Harden away and get picks back. Well, he was the idiot that brought James Harden here to begin with. So all he did was fix his mistake. Daryl Morey has never won a damn thing. Problem is, for some reason, Daryl Morey's reputation far exceeds his actual success.
The fans were banging the drum for Harden, though, too. So it wasn't like we're innocent in this. You know, the problem with the Sixers is similar to what they had with AI is they can't find the right players to play with Embiid, and you need a starting caliber backup center because did you see how many games he's missed? He's played as many games in his career as he's missed, and that's dude.
Good.
Rick is banging the drum on these Phillies, dude.
Rick's my man. I love you. Got to check out Rick's. I'll send you a link to Rick's podcast. He's got a great Eagles podcast.
Rick, I will tell you this: the Phillies are in a top tier in baseball where they should be competing for the championship, but they are not on a tier with like the Dodgers or the Yankees. Although the Yankees fucking suck. Excuse my language. They're terrible. The Mets think. Yeah, dude, Anthony, you are so wrong on Nick Castellanos. I don't even know where to start. Why do you hate him so much? He's probably one of the smarter baseball players in the league, not even on the team in the league. He was your MVP last year. He was the guy that willed this team to a first place finish. He's the guy that helped them win that one game at the Mets, which was probably the best game in all of baseball last year. So I'm not going to take Nick Castellanos besmirchment on this show. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. Everybody shits on this guy, and all he does is perform. He had a really
he's a very inconsistent player. He's streaky. He's got a different mindset. He doesn't have that Philly attitude necessarily.
Terrible, and he was a phenomenal baseball player from June on. In 2023, he was an all-star. He doesn't make errors in the field. He went how many 400 plus games not making an error.
He's much better defensively than people give him credit. Phillies will be good, but we have to contend with a healthy Braves squad and the Mets. Yeah,
no.
I don't think the Phillies are fourth best in the NL alone, not just in baseball. The Dodgers, Braves, and Mets are all better than the Phillies at this point.
No,
on paper going into the season.
As long as Brian Snitker is their manager, I don't feel the Braves. They haven't figured out how to beat the Phillies. They haven't figured it out. They can beat the pants off us during the year, but they haven't figured out how to beat us in the postseason. And that's where we own them. The Mets, I think they caught a lot of lightning in the bottle towards the end, and yeah, I wasn't really looking. I was looking forward to the Phillies playing the Mets for the sake of baseball because I think that is, I think baseball needed something like that. But I wanted the Phillies to win, obviously. But I'm again, as long as Steve Cohen owns the Mets, I don't have any faith in him. Like you don't there's some shitty organizations out there that just happen to be good. You know. You want to make you are right.
He hasn't played left.
Would have been great.
He hasn't even played left field for us, really. Remember, people forget that Nick Castellanos was brought in. He was brought into platoon left field and DH. Correct. And he was kind of thrust into right field because of Harper's, Tommy John injury, his elbow injury there. And he's done. You know how I describe Nick Castellanos' defense kind of like Tobias Harris back when he was here. Tobias Harris wasn't a great player because of his contract, but he actually played really strong defense in a situation where he wasn't supposed to be. Ben Simmons was supposed to be the defender. Jimmy Butler was supposed to. Joel Embiid was supposed to. Tobias Harris went out there, did his job every day, did it to the best of his ability, exceeded his own ability sometimes. Castellanos is the same way defensively. Castellanos isn't known as a defender, but he's worked his ass off to become a great defender, just kind of like Tobias Harris did back in the day. And we don't like Castellanos' contract, but, it's not his fault that he was overpaid. Casty sucks. Moscow, deal with it. Oh, man. Casty's the worst player I've ever had to suffer watching. He is such a huge loser. I don't know about the loser aspect of it. But again, everyone's saying this. The Phillies, this is the same Phillies team that's come up short multiple years in a row. Braves and Mets will shit the bed in the playoffs. Casty is replaceable. Oh my God! Dude, firing up the chat just for firing up chat moments.
Dude, I love Nick Castellanos. I do. He's just no nonsense. He's very, again, I think his baseball intelligence is like off the charts. And I do think he's a guy that is trying to be a leader on this team. I mentioned this earlier, that the team is close but fragmented, because I do think like the pitchers stay to themselves, the high priced talent stays to themselves, the Latin American players stay to themselves, the bench players stay to themselves. So they're all little cliques. With the Eagles, and we saw the list of those players come up and talk that Saturday night and what they had to say. Like, you could hear a pin drop in that room, and what those guys said in that room really resonated, because you saw what they did that next day. And football is the ultimate team sport, and if anything, the baseball is probably towards the bottom when you talk about being a team sport. It's very,
but it doesn't matter what kind of a sport it is. It comes down to leadership, and I just don't think the Phillies have the proper leaders in place to shift the culture.
I think they have the leaders.
And that's what no offense. We might actually see the first big culture shift in spring training, and that is potentially getting rid of Garrett Stubbs and moving on to Marchand as the backup catcher. And everyone said you can't get rid of Garrett Stubbs because he's the locker room glue. Well, what has that locker room glue really done to pull it together? You know what I mean? So, Castellanos, Harper, all these guys are great, but someone's got to step up. And I think back to 93, Mark. You had Kruk, Dalton, and Dykstra. Nobody would F around without worrying about one of those three guys, putting them in their place. No one would want to give less than 100% every night because you'd piss one of those three guys off. You had to win for those guys, or those three guys were going to tear you up. We don't have that kind of leader on this team.
I think you have Kyle Schwarber that can be the closest thing to Darren Dalton that team had.
The Darren Dalton, sure, that's fine.
If they allow them to do that, and that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, these guys all came to the team at the request of Harper. They did. Casty, Schwarbs, JT, they all came because Harper asked them to, or he wanted them on the team. And I think there is a certain level of apprehensiveness for one of these guys to step up and say, well, wait a second, Harp, take a seat. You do you, but we need to bring this clubhouse together. We need to bring this lineup together. We need to cut the shit out and whatnot. Like, honestly, we need like a Carlos Santana with a bat to smash a Fortnite game in the locker room. Maybe somebody takes a bat to Stubbs DJ equipment. I don't know.
But it's also not going to be your coach, because Rob Thompson would never be like that.
Mr. Sandman, the baseball players can play into their late 30s nowadays.
It depends on health and injuries.
Yeah, I think Harper has a chance if like what his diet and exercise regimen is. He has a chance to play into his 40s.
He does.
He takes very, very good. He's been hurt, but he takes very good care of himself. Yeah,
we're still going back and forth on Castellanos in the comments here. One saying clutch, one saying not. I think it's kind of funny how much Castellanos is firing. Out of all people, I did not have Nick Castellanos firing up the chat on my bucket list today.
When he wins you a World Series, let me see what you have to say about that. I really think that the dude is probably one of your best players on the team, and he just gets overlooked. Stubbs is probably going to go in the minors.
From earlier.
I think Stubbs goes into the minors, and I think Stubbs has a future.
Stubbs has options. Marchand has no more options to be demoted. So this would be the year the Phillies win it all, the unexpected year. See, the thing is, though, there are still expectations on the Phillies. There really are, if you really think about it, because, they have a $300 million payroll. They've got a lot of – they have 8 All-Stars last year. They still have 8 or 9 All-Stars on the roster this year if all goes according to plan. So the Phillies are, on paper, a great team. Problem is they just come up short in the playoffs.
They have
Is
Wheeler and
is
Nolan.
the Phillies in the playoffs that much different than the Sixers the last couple of years with second round exits? Not really. We hate the Sixers, but we don't hate the Phillies. The Phillies have come up short the last 2 years, just like the Sixers have the last 4 or 5 years.
The Sixers have been woefully awful. When you really take,
they made the playoffs every single year for the last how many years?
This team, the last time they made it past the conference final is 2001. So if you were born that day, you're 24 years old. I mean, like you're out of college and you have your first job out of college. Like that is really bad. 93 Dutch on this current Phillies team, we'd have multiple World Series.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that if you didn't say that. I fully expect that would have been like that.
Not
guys, you're watching Trending in the AM.
To happen.
I was just going to say real quick, the most people watch on YouTube right now, make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button. I think I just spelled subscribe wrong there. Share. It's free to do. Please hit those buttons. We got close to 20 people watching right now on YouTube, plus all the Twitter people. Like, share, subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. One more time. With it spelled. I can't believe nobody caught that spelling error last week because I was using that graphic all last week. You guys normally call me out for those things, but please, we're talking Eagles versus Phillies and Sixers. And I guess the Flyers could get thrown in there too. I know there's hockey love out there right now with this Team USA game this weekend, but right back to the comments. Phillies play a losing brand of baseball. They either score a trillion runs or they couldn't hit beach balls. You know what?
And baseball is boring to begin with. There's no such thing as exciting baseball. Let's be real.
I mean, it's true. But this is also why you need a change. Because they're either going to have 5 games in a row where they score 10 runs, and then they're going to go 6 games in a row where they score 3 runs combined. And it's been this way for 4 years straight.
There's a lot of holes in the swings of a lot of players on this team. And they are they are a streaky bunch. The key is to get streaky hot going into the playoffs and just ride that out. I don't know how you do that, but listen, I do think they're going to make noise this year. I think they're a playoff contender without a doubt. I think they can still win the division. I think they can get by the Dodgers, and I think they can win the World Series. But they got to look themselves in the mirror and really say, are you really going to go for it? Because they've been dicking around for 3 years, and they need to again take a page from the Eagles playbook on what they've done as a team over the past 3 years and how they overcame adversity. This is a team that surprisingly went to the Super Bowl, lost, started hot the next year, had internal turmoil, rip apart the team, still made the playoffs, lost, retooled, and won the big thing. They have a chance to again take the page out of their playbook and get over the top. Again, the Phillies are not a bottom of the barrel team.
I don't think anybody is calling them a bottom barrel team. They're a great team, and I am surprised.
Top-tier team. They're just not.
I am surprised. The books have the Phillies as the 4th favorite to win the World Series. I am very surprised by that.
Richie.
But this team, I really think I've come on to something here. This Phillies team is no different than the Sixers. The Sixers have been the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference. The Sixers have had an MVP. The Sixers have made the playoffs every year since what? 2015, 2016, never gotten out of the second round of the playoffs. So whether you're a great regular season team or not, whether you win 90 games, 95 games, 88 games, getting to the playoffs is not the point. This gets back to ring culture. What do you want? To be a top 5 team and be really good, or do you want the World Series? I want a World Series championship. That's all I want. And this Phillies team has come up short 3 years in a row.
We were told as a fan base that we don't get rings. For Phil, and you're not that much younger than me. Like there was dry points. A lot
of dry points.
There was 25 years between championships, and now we're in the play for championships every year with the Phillies and the Eagles. We should be with the Sixers.
Yeah,
and something's bound to crack somewhere. And listen, we haven't really talked too much about the Eagles. I'm going to put it out now. I think they can win back-to-back Super Bowls
I agree.
next year. I think you're going to lose some players, but you're going to draft some players as well. I think the confidence is there. Their schedule is a totally winnable schedule. I think they can go back to back. And if this team goes back to back, now you're talking about dynasty, and you're kind of floating around it now. I mean, you've been to the Super Bowl 3 times
in 8
in
years.
8 seasons with 2 wins. That is
With 2 different quarterbacks, with 2 different coaches.
You got, I mean, just big picture stuff. You were the NFC participant in 3 of almost 50%. What is that? 37.5% of the Super Bowls in that time frame, and you won it 25% of the time. You start going on this run to be a new Patriots or new Chiefs. Like, forget about it. We will be in an insufferable city and fan base, and I'm on board with that. Rick, baseball's boring, dude. I've coached it forever. It's boring.
I'm like Rick. I love watching a baseball game, but I'm a purist at heart. But I want to get back to Rick's bashing, because he's saying this like nobody is bashing the Phillies. We're just basically saying they're missing something. They're missing that edge that the Eagles have had.
Fire in the belly. They're missing the fire in the belly.
And the thing is, they're not making those changes necessary to create that. If the Phillies would have gone out and I'm just saying hypothetical, all right, traded Kyle Schwarber or JT Realmuto, just done that in the offseason. Not saying it was possible or not, but just going out there and trading one of those locker room stalwarts over the last 3-4 years, that might have sent a shockwave. Oh, shit. None of us are safe. We've all come up small over the last couple of years. Maybe they could have fired Rob Thompson. I'm not saying whatever. And just said, oh, wow, winning is not enough. We have to win a title or we're not safe. They've developed this culture in Philly with the Phillies and the Sixers that being great is different than winning a title. Being great is good enough. No, you want to win a title. And that's the problem. The Phillies haven't made enough changes to prove that they're really serious about winning a World Series. That's all. That's all there is.
They've always been sensitive about attendance, and they won't make those moves for the fear of ticket sale drop-off. That's why Rollins and Howard and Utley stuck around for as long as they did, is because they were afraid of the gate. The Phillies are a hot ticket now. Are you going to go ahead and start breaking this team up now? And what happens if the team falters? Boom, there goes their ticket sales. Again, I think they're running this team out. This is their last hurrah. Honestly, if they're floating around 500 around the trading deadline, don't be surprised if they go to guys like Schwarber and JT and Castellanos and say, dude, we're breaking it up. Where do you want to go? Because we can't do it. I don't think it's going to come to that. And Rick, I'm going to go back to what you said. Baseball is boring. Playoff baseball is not. That's a whole different conversation. I
get the Phillies were in the World Series a few years ago, but then the last 2 years, I'm just talking about the last 2 years, came up short. I get that. I get they were there. I kind of think 22, no offense, I kind of feel like this entire Phillies run is slightly being overrated, because 2022, they made it to the World Series. But I keep saying it. I said it even during that run. They caught lightning in a bottle in 2022. They were a talented team that was poorly coached. They fired Girardi. They promoted Rob Thompson. Rob Thompson caught lightning in a bottle, won 18 and 19 games right out of the gate there, got them back into things. And since then, nothing's really changed. I just think it was that moment kind of overrated the whole entire situation a little bit, because we were so craving the Phillies being good. I mean, they're still a really great team. They are still a top 5 team. They're just not a team that I have faith can win a World Series. That's it. Doesn't mean I think they're bad. If you're an opposing pitcher, what would your strategy to get through this lineup?
Breaking balls.
Breaking balls. No
listen,
fastballs.
I'm not going to disagree there, Mr. Sandman. Like, you throw breaking balls all day long to this lineup, you're going to get a lot of strikeouts. The problem is if you're not hitting them in the strike zone or fooling them, and they're standing pat, you're going to force to throw a fastball, and these guys will fucking murder a fastball. And that's the problem. If they can just get a little bit more plate discipline, and lay off those outside breaking balls, this lineup could do wonders. But as much as I do like Castellanos, he loves that outside pitch, but he got a lot better laying off of it in that second half of the season last year. JT has struggled at the plate. Schwarber had his best year as a Philly last year, and I'm really curious to see what it looks like this year. Harper did not have a good year.
Has exceeded his contract. I mean, I know he hasn't been a perfect leadoff hitter or a perfect player, but he's on a 4-year $79 million contract. And I kind of feel like he's hit 40 home runs pretty much every year. He's, been really, really solid his entire team here. I just want to really quickly address this before I go through more comments. I hate the word dynasty while the dynasty is happening. Can we wait to call it a dynasty till after? Can we just move on? You know what I mean? Like, we can look back on the dynasty in 2035. But right now, we've won one Super Bowl. Let's just hold off on the word dynasty until we've actually accomplished that. That's just my opinion, Mark.
Rick, let me add something here. I think they're on the right track, and it has a lot to do with a couple things. Number one, it's Jeff Stoutland and the offensive line. As long as he's there, that line will always be the best in the league. For defense, Howie Roseman has changed his philosophy on how he drafts defensive players. You could see it now. They've also gotten back to why they hired Nick Sirianni in the first place. If you recall, they hired him because he ran the ball. Part of the reason why he was hired is that he ran the ball with the Colts, and they're running the balls now. They ran the ball all year, and look what it got them. And their success is the NFL is a copycat league. You're going to watch a lot of these teams focus in on the run next year versus the pass. They've changed philosophies. They really have. And, I'm super proud of this organization. If you remember when Jeffrey Lurie bought this team, he said he was going to make this organization a gold standard. And honestly, dude, this is a beyond gold standard. What he's done in 31 years of ownership pales in. The only person that would rival him is Ed Snyder, pre-Comcast years. He's just done a phenomenal job. He's built practice facilities, stadiums. He's gotten them 2 titles. He's learned from mistakes. He's the best owner that we have in the city by a
long shot.
Yeah. It's just, and we ridiculed him during the Lurie and Banner years, and we made fun of him, and the gold standard, and want to be like the 49ers, and people want to be like the Eagles now. So I mean, it's just and I've been my happiest in my fandom really in the last 7 years with this team. It's just been, or 8 years, however it's been since their first Super Bowl. It's been a phenomenal run so far.
I think Rick really is misunderstanding this conversation on the Phillies.
Dude.
Yeah, I don't think there's any bashing going on. There's just
Rick,
not.
They're going to make a run.
They're going to win 90 games, 95 games. They're going to make the playoffs, and then we'll see if they've changed it all. It's pretty simple. I just want titles. That's all I want.
Rick, you can't take away from the holes that are still on this team. And I'm the Phillies guy, dude. And I'm the guy that says that this is a baseball team. a baseball town that happens to be dormant. When the Phillies are hot, the people come out, the ratings go up, the stadium gets packed, the merch gets bought. And right now you're not going to talk as much about the Eagles in the summertime because of the Phillies. All right, great, Rick. Call it out.
I don't think there's anything that we all
I don't know how
know.
many
The
times
Phillies are a
Phil and I
great
need
team.
to tell you that they're going to make a run. Whether they win it or not, I mean, they're going to have to get by the Dodgers, and they're going to have to get by the AL representative, which I don't think is going to be the Yankees, and I think they can. Whomever is in the running, who would be in the running? I don't even know. There's a mix of several different AL teams that could to go there.
No, absolutely. And I saw somebody saying that Saquon, is he going to ask for extension? Honestly, I mean, we got about 20, 25 minutes left today of the show. I want to get Mark's thoughts on the Eagles offseason for sure. There is an argument to be made that Saquon might get a contract renegotiation, extension, raise, or something like that. The Eagles and Howie Roseman have a lot of free agents. There's 18, 19 free agents on this Eagles team. While the core of the offense is set, there's not a huge amount of cap at this moment. There's going to be after renegotiations. I'm sure there's some Howie magic out there that a renegotiation with Saquon Barkley could happen to give him a little bit of more of a bonus, upfront money, stretch his contract out a little bit more. There is an argument to be made that is something that might happen this offseason because that's right up Howie Roseman's alley.
So they have a number of free agents. I wouldn't be surprised if they fixed his contract.
Yeah,
he took a very team-friendly deal in a market where running backs are not valued, and honestly, Barkley just created value. From a free agent standpoint, I think Zach Bond is the guy you have to sign because I don't think Trotter is ready, and the Kobe Dean was hurt. You don't know how they're going to come back. Burks is a nice story, but he's not a guy that's going to play every game or start every game. I think you need to sign Zach. I agree
that Zach Bond should be, but I got Doughboy here with some comments, about Bond and Becton, Williams, let Bradbury and Sweat. Bradbury's still under contract, so you got to cut him post June 1st to make that savings. Josh Sweat's a pretty good player, but I think he's going to get paid like a great player. In my opinion, Bond and Becton are more important than Milton Williams, and this is not a knock. Yeah. I've been a huge Milton Williams fan since day one. Loved them. And that we still all remember the Howie Roseman fist bump that didn't actually happen with, what's the guy's name? The scout that didn't want
Tom Donahue.
Yeah, exactly. Becton is a much bigger piece of the free agent puzzle than people realize because, yes, Tyler Steen could, in theory, fill in, but he's never had to fill in for a full season. And you win with your offense and defensive line, and Becton is a huge piece of that offensive line. You try to keep that starting five together another year.
Here's the deal with Becton, and I do think he is another must.
Yeah.
I think they like Tyler Steen at guard, but then Lane Johnson is going to he's going to retire. Now, he said he's coming back next year, but if they were to win a Super Bowl again next year, what more does that man need to prove? He has a Hall of Fame career and 3 rings. Becton can play tackle, and I think they should sign him, anticipating him moving over to right tackle within the next 2 seasons.
I like that. I like that idea. I can get behind that.
And I think he would come back at a team-friendly deal because the Eagles rejuvenated his career.
Yeah,
I think he would do that.
Bond and Becton versus Milton Williams. Bond and Becton had their best years of their career under Vic Fangio and Jeff Stoutland. There's no guarantees they go elsewhere. They have the same level of success. Milton Williams is just a stud defensive tackle. You could plug and play him on almost any defense, and he's going to succeed. Also, I saw Seth Joyner talk about, I think it was Thursday or Friday, about Becton and Steen. You know what you got with Becton. Steen has been nice in small sample sizes, but let's not act like he lost the job in training camp to Mekhi Becton. Let's not forget that part of it. So, Becton beat out Tyler Steen in training camp. Just just to remind people of that. At a position he never played in the pros.
I think if Lane came back and said, I'm going to retire, I think it's a no-brainer. Becton gets signed. He moves to right tackle. Steen is your starting guard. I would also say with Milton Williams, I think the Eagles need to make a decision on Jordan Davis.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it.
I think Jordan Davis has not been quite the player that they were hoping. And do you invest in Jordan Davis, or do you decline the club option and let him play out his contract and sign Milton Williams to the role that honestly Jordan Davis should have had? I don't think that's going to happen. I do think Howie does put a lot of faith in their draft picks, especially their first rounders.
And their development of those draft picks in the defensive line. They've developed a lot of guys on the defensive line.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of it.
I don't think Williams will be back. Remember, Josh Sweat kind of got cut or had to redo his contract. He didn't have a lot of faith in him. And he had a nice season. I mean, he had a tremendous Super Bowl. I think he should have been MVP. I think that went out. I think that went out the window with the dagger to Hurts to Slim Reaper. But I think he's going to get paid. And listen, more power to him. Let him go get paid and let him go play elsewhere. That's okay. To be real, have we regretted any players that have left this Eagles team? I think Howie makes good decisions on who's going to leave, but you want to Myles Garrett, I think, is a little bit of a pipe dream.
Yeah, I don't even want Myles Garrett, not because of the player, because what it's going to cost you in a trade to get him.
We have a shit ton of draft picks, though, so there's going to be moves to be made.
But no, it's not going to cost you 5th and 6th round draft picks. It's going to cost you 2 first-round draft picks, and probably a player like Nolan Smith or Jalen Suggs.
I'd rather
because
get
there's going to be 10 teams that are going to want Myles Garrett. Are you going to give up this year and next year's first, plus Nolan Smith to go get him?
No, don't give up Nolan Smith. He had a nice season.
Beat Washington or beat Dallas or beat the 30 other teams that are going to call Cleveland on him. You're going to have to give up value. Plus, he's under a massive contract, and I know how he could figure out the contract and stuff like that. I don't know about that. But then onto the holding on to Milton part of it, it's basically you got 2 options. Do you keep Vaughn and Becton, or do you keep Milton Williams? In my opinion, it's option A or option B. And in my option, I'm keeping Vaughn and Becton over just Milton Williams. Because Milton Williams, what did Javon Hargrave get from San Francisco a few years ago when he left Philly? It was like 5 years, $90 million.
Something ridiculous.
Contracts have gone up. So Milton Williams is still in that. He's going to get a 4 or 5 year deal at about $20 million a year to go somewhere. And I just don't know if I could do that, even with the Jordan Davis situation that you present.
Unless Jordan Davis is included in a trade package and then you sign Williams.
Well, that's another scenario there. And I get that thought process. And I asked that question in the middle of the season this year. Would you keep Milton Williams or Jordan Davis? You can only keep one. So I get that argument in that conversation.
I think on the surface you keep Williams, but then you have to look at pedigree and where you drafted Davis. I don't, what you said, like you don't give up on the guy. I think they're going to have to keep them. Yeah, I think Josh is not going to be here.
Josh is not. He's going to get a huge contract elsewhere. So
that won't be. I don't think there'll be any hard feelings with that.
No. I mean, he was wearing the Clutch Sports shirt, at the parade anyway. I mean, he knows what he knows what he's doing.
He was on the opposite when we were at the parade. He was on the opposite side of the street. But I did see that I think he was with Jalen Carter. Nolan Smith came by our side, and he wasn't drunk yet. Just to let you know, he didn't get drunk until further down the parade. He was interacting. We didn't even talk about the parade that you were afraid to go to.
I wasn't afraid to go to it. I'm glad I didn't go to it because the pizza shop got dumped with it. It just happened to fall on Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is one of our busiest days of the year in the pizza business. Yeah. I was worried, and 2 of my employees went, and they were both very late getting to work. Well, one was very late. The other one kind of got into a fight and didn't make it to work. We'll ignore that whole aspect of that thing's happening there. But as soon as I got to work at 10:30 on Friday, some doctor's office ordered 50 pizzas out of left field with no preparation or no time. So I think my wife might have been a little pissed off if she was making those 50 pizzas by herself versus with me at 10:30 in the morning. So, I made plenty of money out of it and all. I still got to watch it and all.
All good, all good. I'm just giving you
Marshawn,
shit.
I missed your question. Sorry. Repeat your question. I'm paging through them all. I don't even know. By the way, shout out to KC, man. Been a long time since I've seen you in the chat, my man. Marshawn, I missed your question. Sorry. Repost it. No, if you are the Eagles, keep your young guys go in the draft. You're not getting Abdul Carter. There's no way you're getting Abdul Carter in the draft. Jordan Davis had 2 sacks in the playoffs, 13 snaps, and 1 sack in the Super Bowl. Jordan Davis, I think the problem is the talent is there with Jordan Davis. I think the Vic Fangio system might not be best suited for Jordan Davis. Does that make sense?
I think they'll probably give him another shot again from where he was drafted. Bryce Huff will not be on the team. There were rumors that he did not attend the parade, and I didn't see him. I didn't see him on stage. He may have kept a low profile, but the dude was deactivated for the Super Bowl.
I looked at this last week and I didn't write it down, so I forget the exact number. If you cut or trade Bryce Huff at any time, post June 1st cuts, or trade him anytime this offseason, there is a massive cap hit next year. Now, how he's not afraid of it, but project it with maybe renegotiating Slay, cutting Bradbury, cutting certain players pre-post. We're looking at about $35 million in cap space next year, ballpark. All right? Let me tell you something. A huge chunk of that would go to Bryce Huff if you get rid of him. So there's a really, really tough situation there. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I agree he should be gone. But there's a huge dollar amount attached to Bryce Huff next season.
You mentioned Darius Slay. He won't be back. I
think Darius Slay, there's a chance that he'd be back on a renegotiated deal.
He'll be 35 next year, dude. For a cornerback,
he still performed at a very high level this past year. Very high level.
It depends how they feel about their young guys.
Isaiah Rodgers is also a free agent. Avonte Maddox is a free agent. Not that we care about Avonte Maddox. I get that, but I'm saying they're young guys. So you got Bradbury, or you got Quinion, you got Cooper, and you've got Eli Ricks and Keely Ringo. That's all you really got right now next year. For sure. I'm just saying. So Darius Slay is in the picture to be back next year, in my opinion. Replays, it's maintained health. I think he stayed pretty healthy.
It's not about healthy. It's about he's fat and he's out of shape and he's winded and he doesn't have the stamina. Did I say that right? To stay on the field as much as somebody mentioned he only played 13 snaps in the Super Bowl. For a first round pick, that's not good.
It's not.
Brandon Graham played 13 snaps in the Super Bowl, I think. 13
first game in 10 weeks. So Marshawn's question was, what was the better quote? You want Philly, or if we score, it's over, just call it. And if you missed that, guys, that was Nick Sirianni to Kellen Moore calling the play that resulted in the Devontae Smith touchdown pass. I think it's a lot closer than people realize. Philly is special because it was a trick play. Philly special because it won us our first Super Bowl. But in that scenario, calling the play that Kellen Moore called, I mean, that was like the dagger. We always talk about belt to ass, right? Well, that was the belt to ass play right there of the Super Bowl. And I love it. That just showed that Nick Sirianni wasn't afraid to back down from his aggressive nature.
That's
a tough call.
I think it's 1 and 1A. And I absolutely love Nick Sirianni saying it because I was saying it all week. They cannot take their foot off the pedal. They got to put their foot to the throat. They got to keep scoring. That bomb was the point where I knew they were going to win the Super Bowl. And you were saying, Mark, they were up 27-0 in the third quarter. What are you talking about? Listen, dude, I've seen too many of these games where guys like Mahomes bring those teams back and all of a sudden it's something else. that was a 5-possession game at that point, and you didn't have 5 possessions left. There was just no way that was going to happen. And that I just breathed a sigh of relief on that once that dagger was to the heart.
I think this is right. One was iconic, one was poetic. I think that's like the 1A, 1B kind of way of describing it, and I like that. Vontae Maddox can go. We tried to get rid of Vontae Maddox last year, and no one else wanted him, so we kept him cheaply. And he made a big play in the Super Bowl, so good for him. Stanima,
dude,
will
I
never miss him.
Dude.
Yeah, he did. All
I'm
right.
an idiot.
I think Michael Green might fall to the Eagles if he's there. You take him. I have still not gotten into any draft research yet. So the only name I really know is Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter wants to be an Eagle so bad. Go make it happen.
Yeah, I don't know how you make it happen, but look, Howie's an aggressive guy. You know how he is, Mr. Aggressive. Just call it. Yeah. My hot take for today: Sanders is going to slide to the end of the first round. Howie should know. He's not going to slide to the end of the first round, and B, Sanders is going to be not a very good NFL quarterback in my position. My opinion.
The Giants will draft him.
Yeah, 13 snaps in 1 sack is insane production for somebody who isn't regarded as a pass rusher. Yeah, I mean, look, Jordan Davis is a really talented player. It's just staying on the field. That's all it is. Dotson was a good pickup for the Eagles. Yeah, Jahan Dotson. You know, I give a lot of credit to Jahan Dotson for swallowing his pride, going from the 1A, 1B option, Washington, to being the 5th option on the Eagles offense, and just doing his job and doing the role he was asked, blocking, special teams, whatever it was. He swallowed that pride. And you know what? I think that's major props to Dotson for what he did this year.
He set the tone in the Super Bowl with that catch.
Yeah, absolutely. 27-0 means nothing. Brady killed. Yeah, exactly. And what was, I know it wasn't the Super Bowl, but a few years back, everybody's poster boy, Justin Herbert, was up, 31-3 or 33-0 against the Jaguars at halftime and blew that game. So, yeah, there's no such thing as the game. Just like you heard Jalen Hurts talking about, you saw the video, Grant Calcaterra, it's okay to smile. And he's like, no, that last game broke me. You know what I mean? It ain't over till it's over. So, yeah. Stamina is pretty badass, too. Yeah, it is.
Stamina.
No, it's stamina. It's stamina from now. They're going to say that from now on, just so you know, in this show. For the record, I'm keeping Jordan Davis over Milton because them Georgia boys, they did also, so talking cornerbacks, they did pick up that other cornerback from Georgia late in the season. He was inactive, but so they have another young cornerback that I missed there. Saying those Georgia boys remind me of Dotson swallowed his pride and learned to play. He got a ring before all his cohorts on the commies. Absolutely agree with you on that. Absolutely agree, 100% there. I don't know. This Eagles team, it's going to be a wild offseason for sure, Mark. What kind of an extension would you give to Nick Sirianni at this point? Because he's going to get one. Are you going the classic 3 years? Or because he won the Super Bowl, are you offering him more?
I'm going to rip up his 5th year and give him like a 5-year. I'm going to make him the highest paid coach in the NFL, or one of the highest. I don't know what Reed makes, and I don't know what did they give Ben Johnson to the Bears, because that's what they're saying that they're going to give him.
Yeah, I forget what the dollar amount was, but yeah, I heard that as well. Davis drops out.
He got a 5-year. Ben Johnson got a 5-year, $65 million contract. Wow. Are you telling me that Nick Sirianni isn't worth that? And would the Eagles put that money out to that? Because they didn't do that for Doug.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what Andy made during his time, but he probably did okay, and he had GM duties at the time. 13 mil a year. I mean, what's Sirianni's contract now? Do we know? I'll look that up.
He signed a 5-year deal, but I don't know the exact amount.
He's got a 5-year 35, so he's at $7 million a year. You doubling his salary?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to give him the vote of confidence and do that.
Damn, dude, I would love to have my salary doubled like that after a good year.
Wouldn't we all? I think this is an interesting comment here, and we're about 5 minutes left in the show, so we can't get deep into it. But Cooper is an outside quarterback. He took the slot to help the team. I don't know if I move Cooper DeJean outside. Cooper DeJean proved to be a really damn good slot corner in his rookie year, why would you then move him? Like, I think he's perfectly slotted in the slot, and you keep Slay. Maybe you draft another guy. Maybe you develop another guy. I don't know. I hate creating a hole to fix another hole. So replacing Slay with DeJean and then having a new hole in the slot to fill, I don't know if I necessarily do that.
Nowadays, there's 3 starting cornerbacks nowadays.
Yeah,
so
you need 3 starters, and the slot's very important.
Having him play slot, I don't think is the end of the world. You bring up a good point. 2-year extension.
Yeah.
But does Nick have a desire to like take over the organization? I think that was part of what the issue was with Doug. He wanted more power. Does Nick want more power, or does he know his place? If he knows his place, he'll get a longer extension. If he's going to look for more power, then I think that extension will be shorter. And
I don't think you can make decisions based off of things that went bad 5, 6, 7 years ago. You can't let the Doug situation, which is totally different than the Nick situation, influence your opinion there. But I get it. I just think you got to do more than 2 years at this point. At a minimum, he needs 3 years. At a minimum, at this point. We figured that out. Kellen Moore got 5 million. That says 5 million. Sorry, I misread that. 5 million. Okay.
Yeah, but he probably got like he was probably only make about $1 million a year as a coordinator. He had to do that.
Yeah.
Paying Nick
I would have considered keeping Kellen Moore, giving him a little bit of a pay bump. 3 like they did with Ben Johnson in Detroit last year. Pay Nick Enhansky.
He is a hairy dude. Yo,
all Italians are, Mark, right?
Did you see him over at where was it in Haddon Township, Bell Tavern, I think it's called? He went behind the bar and was pouring drinks and pouring shots for everybody.
Yeah, might as well. Marshawn, I mean, if you're getting rid of Slay, you keep DeJean in the slot, and Ringo would be your heir apparent in that outside spot there. It would be the way you'd go into the season. Maybe they would make another move. I don't know. Do nothing different with DeJean. Let Coop be Coop. I agree. I think Cooper's perfect in the slot. He likes to blitz the quarterback. He doesn't mind making the tackles of the running back. You keep Coop wherever. And that's also because of Ringo. Ringo hasn't done enough to prove he's ready, in my opinion, to replace Slay. I think you keep Slay for 1 more year. Slay's getting older. He's getting more banged up. He's missing more time. A Slay-Ringo outside combo is in my opinion, the way to go. We grabbed that cornerback 49ers first-round cornerback from Georgia. I don't know who that is. DeJean cannot make as much as a slot. That is true. But Howie doesn't mind paying people as long as they're winners. That's all that matters. Ringo is big and fast, built different. Eli Ricks is an interesting one to me because he was basically inactive all year long. He very rarely dressed this year. Jason Sehorn played outside corner for the Giants and was slower than Coop. Not a bad experiment putting Coop out there, but Coop is great in the slot. I agree, Jonathan. I do. Rick sucks. He literally was on the 53-man roster all year and was a game day inactive every single game this year, just about. Only concern I have is the offense coordinator. We still got to figure out who. I'm still Doughboy in the opinion that it'll be Kevin Petula, but I would look outside of Kevin Petula personally. That's just me.
Yeah, but here's the deal. Like, if you look outside, it's just going to be a revolving door. They need a little bit of stability. They have stability with that's a great comment.
It is.
They have stability with Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator. He's going to ride this out into retirement. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, whatever. Offensive coordinator is a little bit different, and I'm curious. Like, does Jalen want more stability than there is? And if so, you need to promote from within. If you want to set up the same kind of situation that you have with Fangio, do you go after a Frank Reich or even a Doug Peterson, which that will never happen. But somebody like that says, listen, I just want to be an offensive coordinator. I can do everything that you need to do. yada, yada, yada. We can create consistency, and you don't have to worry about those guys jumping to head coaching positions.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what you need is some stability at the very top. You see how much they faltered when they, after 22, and they lost both coordinators, and they didn't make the right decisions to fill both of those roles. Now, who made those decisions? Was that Howie? Was that Nick? Was that a combination of both? I think it was Howie.
Howie's also in charge of hiring the OC this time around. So everyone keeps pointing to certain guys like Frank Reich or like Mike McCoy or any of these guys that have ties to Nick Sirianni. Well, Nick Sirianni's not the one making the choice. It's Howie Roseman. It's Jeffrey Lurie. And I get I'm not in love with Frank Reich idea, but the whole aspect of him, like Vic Fangio, not going to be a head coach, that brings in some stability. I just want a guy that's called plays. Kevin Petula has not called plays in the NFL. So, I just want that experienced play caller in that spot. But we'll see. I think you could do much worse than Kevin Petula.
He's been on the staff for 4 years, Phil.
Yeah.
He worked with Sirianni going back to the Chargers. I think he's the heir apparent. I wouldn't have a problem with it. It would probably create some stability. He might get plucked after 1 year. I don't know, but if you have a certain philosophy and you have the right coaches internally that you could just keep moving up, I think that's the way to go instead of getting people from the outside. I think their offensive plan is a no-brainer. Run the ball to set up the pass. And as long as Barkley is healthy and they have a healthy running game going, I think they'll be able to accomplish that.
It goes back to me saying about the whole Doug and Nick, don't let the past scare you. But everyone that's scared of Kevin Petula is scared because we promoted Brian Johnson from within and he wasn't ready, like he, so to speak, we thought he was. Don't let that mistake make you not consider Kevin Petula. I get everything good. I just wanted we're in that dynasty Super Bowl win now era. Do we want to take a chance on Petula, who's never called the plays, and risk another chance at a Super Bowl? I don't know. Guys, we got to wrap this up. We're already well deep into overtime here. It's past 9:30, so we're going to wrap it up for the day. Come back tomorrow. Mark, when's your next day off? When do the people get to be graced by Mark again on this show?
Let me check my schedule and I'll keep you updated. I know that TikTok, that YouTube video you sent of me got some views. So anything to bring more subscribers. If you're not subscribing to Set the Trend Network here, Trending in the AM, you're missing out because you're not getting Phil
Everyone
every
complains
day.
about the dial. This is the place to be in the mornings. But with that being said, guys, we got to wrap it up. We'll be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. More Eagles talk. We'll start getting into this free agency a little bit more detailed. And who knows what else will happen today, guys. But for Marc Moscatelli, I'm Phil Stiefel. Y'all have a great day. Go Birds and bubbles up.
Birds.
Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep.